This one is personal. Let me be real for a second. Most people don't fail the CAPM because it's hard. They fail because they study the wrong way. They listen to the episode, they take the notes, they put in the time and still walked into the exam, well, second guessing every answer, not because they didn't study, but because nobody showed them how PMI actually thinks. I already know what you're thinking. How do you know, ED? Because I've been there. I failed my first attempt and I had the same confusion I still see people dealing with today. Questions like the logistics of the exam. What should I study and how should I study? And my favorite one of all, the one I wasn't even prepared for either. I passed the CAPM. Now what? So let's bring some clarity and actually talk about what's actually going to matter for you. So let's talk about the exam logistics. Let's start with something very simple, very critical, the structure of the exam. Because I saw people asking questions like, can I go back after the break? Should I flag everything and after the review? Let me make this clear. Based on PMI, you're going to answer the first 75 questions, then you'll review your answers. After that, you'll get a 10-minute break. But here's what most people don't realize. Once you take that break, you cannot go back to those first 75. So this is not one of those long exams. Here's 2 decision points. First one, if you walk into the exam thinking you'll fix things later, let me give you some clarity. You've already started second guessing yourself. So I want you to experiment with these actual tips. Make your decisions with confidence the first time. Next one, trust your preparation. You've done this as far as getting prepared. Now it's time to move forward with clarity. Next one, the study mistake. Why people feel stuck. Now, let's talk about why people feel stuck. It's not because the CAPM, again, is too hard. It's because of how you're studying. Most people are memorizing. That was me. I was memorizing the definitions, the terms, the framework. But when you see the question, you freeze. Because the CAPM doesn't ask, what is this? It asks, when would you use this? What should you do next? Why is this even important? PMI is testing your ability to apply knowledge in context. I want you to experiment with this actual tip. Shift your mindset. So I want you to try this. Stop asking, what is this? And start asking, when should I use this in a real project? Next one, how PMI actually thinks. See, this is where everything shifts. It's like almost a huge change. If you don't understand how PMI thinks, because this exam, again, is not about your opinion, it's about a structured decision-making. You'll see multiple answers that look correct. That's intentional. PMI is testing your ability to choose the best answer based on process, sequence, and role clarity. Why is this important? If you rely on instinct instead of structure, you'll miss questions you will already understand. Experiment with these actionable tips. Before looking at the option, pause and ask, what would PMI expect me to do first? Now, let's talk about after you pass. So you've just passed. First of all, I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, because I know that most people say the exam is easy, but it's not easy, but it is one of those exams that really challenge you from a foundational aspect of project management. So congratulations. But I get the question. I've even experienced the question. I got my CAPM, now what? Here's the truth. The CAPM gives you knowledge, but it does not give you experience. You can start clapping right now. I'll say that again. The CAPM gives you knowledge, but it does not give you experience. This is why I put out a lot of episodes around leadership or about experiencing real life project management. You need to go back and listen to them because these are my stars. These are the things I learned along in my journey. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm not trying to brag or I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you that the gap where people get stuck at is what is the next step after I pass the CAPM, or what I like to say is sit and pass the CAPM exam. Because what you want to understand is saying, okay, I'm going after the CAPM exam. Am I going to stay in the current role I'm in or the current job I am in, or will I want to leave this current role or current job? You may be a business analyst and get your CAPM and say, hey, I want to be a project coordinator, or maybe even skip the project coordinator state and be a project manager. It's all about the plan. They always say, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. So I say this to you with intention, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. When you're getting ready to prepare for the CAPM exam, also start getting prepared of what your future is going to look like. Why is this important? If you don't apply what you've learned, I promise you, you will be stuck, as they say, like Chuck. And the reason why is because you didn't make a decision. You were making choices along in this CAPM journey. Ooh, I like that, family. Experiment with these actionable tips. Start building real world exposure. Create project artifacts. Practice communication. Simulate real world scenarios. Next one. Start a blog, a newsletter, podcast, or even a YouTube channel that will allow you to practice actually what you've learned. Now, most of the time you get this, and I don't know how to answer this question most of the time, and maybe because I'm too close to it. They'll ask you, hey, ED, is the CAPM even worth it? Yes. See, sometimes I'm confused because that really depends on the direction. If you're trying to break into project management, this is a strong entry point. It gives you structure, it gives you language, and most of all, it gives you credibility. But I will be totally transparent with you. If you stop at the CAPM and not continue on your work on your craft and project management, you might be disappointed, because when you finally do get that interview, that opportunity that you said you wanted, they'll ask you real world questions pertaining to project management, and you might have challenges. Why you ask that, huh? Because you didn't take the time to learn and master your craft in the real world. Why is this important? The value is not having the certification. That's great, but it really is about how you use it, how you apply it, how you move forward in the journey that you're on. So I ask you one thing, experiment with this actual tip. Use the CAPM as the foundation, not the finish line. I'll say that one more time. Use the CAPM as a foundation and not the finish line. I'm going to put all this together for you real quick, family. What you're really experiencing is not a study problem. It's a clarity problem. You are putting in the effort, but without the right approach, that effort starts to feel heavy. And when it feels heavy, you start doing what most people experience, including myself, start second guessing yourself. But once you understand how PMI actually thinks, that's when everything starts to click. Here's some core takeaways I want you to think about. And I want to be crystal clear, because there's 3 things that actually matter. Yeah, there's more out there and people will tell you more, and that's fine. But I want to tell you from my perspective, scenario thinking versus trying to memorize. So you need to understand the when and why to use concept. Next one, PMI mindset versus your own personal opinion. Answers are based on PMI's expectation. Next one, application versus consumption. What do I mean? I would recommend you practice what you learn. Just don't listen. Just don't watch. Take what you learned and actually apply it in your real world. And when you do that, you'll have an identity shift. What you'll start doing is you'll stop studying just to pass an exam. You'll start really thinking like a project manager, because the CAPM is just the testing of the knowledge you learned. It's testing how you think. It's testing how you make decisions. It's testing how you operate under pressure. No. But if you take that information, that knowledge, that opportunity that you had to sit and pass the exam and then apply it, not only will you be ready for the real world, you'll be equipped to be ready to take on that interview. Here's my personal advice. Don't just aim to pass the exam. Use this opportunity to build how you think, because in real projects, you won't always have the perfect information. You won't always have time to go back and fix a decision. You'll have access to assess, decide, and move forward with confidence. And then, and only then, that's exactly what this exam is training you to do. If you're new to the episode, I go by the name of ED. By the way, I'm working on a CAPM guide. And if you're interested, let me know. You know how to find me. I'm on all the socials. So if it's something you're interested, send me a message or so, and let me help you on your journey. Until next time.